A Chanel Classic flap costs $10,800. The leather, hardware, labor, and materials to produce it run somewhere between $800 and $1,200. That's a markup of nearly 900%. And the people buying it aren't paying for better leather, they're paying for the interlocking C. What I'm about to show you is what happens when you remove the logo from the equation entirely. And what's sitting on the other side of that equation is genuinely remarkable. These are 5 handbag brands that the overwhelming majority of buyers walk straight past. Not because the quality isn't there, it is. Not because the craftsmanship is inferior, it isn't. But because they haven't spent hundreds of millions of dollars making sure you recognize their name from 50 feet away. Smart buyers know that silence in the luxury goods world is often the loudest signal of all. Number 1, Métier London. Métier London was founded in 2016, and if you've never heard of it, that's exactly the point. The brand operates out of the UK and produces the vast majority of its bags by hand in England using full-grain leather. Full grain is the top layer of the hide, the part that hasn't been sanded down or corrected to hide imperfections. It's the most durable cut, it develops a patina over years of use, and it's the same material used in the most expensive bags Hermès produces. Most brands at the $300 to $600 price point don't go near it because it costs significantly more to source and is harder to work with consistently. Métier's closer bag retails between £595 and £1,150 depending on configuration. The stitching is done by hand in small production runs. The hardware is solid brass, not zinc alloy coated to look like brass, but solid brass. Métier's hardware won't tarnish, pit, or flake after 18 months of regular use, and the interior lining is full suede. Compare that to a Celine Small Triumph at £1,450, which uses top-grain leather that has been lightly corrected and finished, and hardware that varies by production run. You are paying £300 to £800 more for a name that appears on more Instagram feeds. The real caveat with Métier is distribution. They don't have a widespread retail footprint. You're largely buying direct or through a small number of carefully selected stockists. For some buyers, the inability to walk into a department store and examine the bag in person before purchasing is a genuine obstacle. That's a fair concern. But for buyers who do their research, that limited availability is also part of what keeps these bags from becoming oversaturated. Number 2, Strathberry. Strathberry is a Scottish brand founded in Edinburgh. Strathberry was founded in 2013, and it manufactures its bags in Ubrique, a small town in the Cádiz province of southern Spain that most luxury consumers have never heard of. Despite the fact that it produces handbags for Loewe, Moynat, and several other houses whose names you would recognize immediately. When a workshop in Ubrique stitches a Loewe puzzle bag and a Strathberry East/West Mini in the same week, the hands doing the work, the leather cutting techniques, and the quality control standards are operating in the same tradition. The difference is which name gets stamped on the inside. The East/West tote, Strathberry's signature silhouette, retails at £395. It uses full-grain leather, bar-link hardware in gold or silver tone, and a structured base that holds its shape without an internal frame, which is a construction detail that less careful brands skip entirely because it adds cost. Strathberry's leather edges are painted and sealed rather than folded and glued, which is the mark of a bag built to last years rather than seasons. An equivalent silhouette from a conglomerate-owned brand, say a Coach Tabby or an MCM midsize tote, will run you $450 to $598 and use top-grain or corrected-grain leather with edge finishing that begins to crack within 2 years of regular use. Strathberry is also not owned by LVMH, Kering, Tapestry, or Capri Holdings. It remains independently operated, which means decisions about leather sourcing and production quality aren't being filtered through a quarterly earnings call. How to read a bag before you buy it. 4 tests anyone can run. Before we get to brand 3, here's something more useful than any review. 4 tests you can apply yourself in any store on any bag in under 2 minutes. Test 1. The smell test. Real full-grain or top-grain leather has a distinctive, slightly earthy smell. Bonded leather, which is essentially leather dust and scraps pressed together with polyurethane, smells faintly chemical or plasticky, especially near the seams. If a bag smells like a new shower curtain, walk away. Test 2. The hardware drop. Cup the clasp, turn lock, or zipper pull in your hand and let it rest. Solid brass hardware has noticeable weight. Zinc alloy hardware feels light and slightly hollow. If you tap it against your fingernail, brass produces a dull, dense sound. Zinc rings slightly. Weight is quality you can feel before you spend a single dollar. Test 3. The edge finish. Turn the bag upside down and look at the bottom edges of the straps and the bag body. Painted and sealed edges. The premium standard look clean and slightly glossy in a thin, even line. Folded and glued edges look rounded. Raw or roughly finished edges that show exposed leather fiber mean the manufacturer cut a corner that will cost the buyer within 18 months. Test 4. The stitch count. Run your finger along a seam. Tight, even stitching, 8 to 10 stitches per inch, means the seam was sewn slowly and carefully. Wide, uneven stitches mean speed over quality. A seam that pulls apart with light tension at the corner of a pocket wasn't reinforced at the stress point. It will fail. Apply these 4 tests to every bag in the next entry, and you'll understand immediately why it belongs on this list. Number 3. Wandler. Wandler was founded in Amsterdam in 2017 by Elsa Wandler, and it is the kind of brand that fashion editors know and general audiences don't. That gap is the opportunity. Wandler uses full-grain European leather, sourced primarily from tanneries in Italy and Spain, and produces its bags in small runs that keep quality control tight. The Hortensia, its most recognizable silhouette, retails at €445 to €595 depending on size, and it has appeared in the pages of Vogue, on the arms of editors at Paris Fashion Week, and in the wardrobes of buyers who track craftsmanship rather than brand recognition. The hardware on Wandler bags is produced in Italy and uses a brass-based alloy with a finish that holds significantly better than the plated hardware found on bags at 2 and 3 times the price from brands like Tory Burch or Kate Spade. The leather develops a genuine patina, meaning it improves and deepens in character with use rather than cracking or peeling, which is the single most reliable indicator of full-grain quality. A bag that patinas is a bag. A bag that was built from the real surface of the hide. A bag that peels was built from something else. The honest caveat here is aesthetic range. Wandler's design language is minimal and architectural. If you prefer structured logos, embellishments, or statement hardware, this brand's restraint will feel limiting. The color palette runs toward neutrals, earth tones, and the occasional bold seasonal color, but the silhouettes don't change dramatically season to season by design. That consistency is a feature for investment buyers and a frustration for trend-driven ones. What Wandler, Strathberry, and Métier share is something the brands dominating your social media feeds have spent decades engineering away: the belief that the bag itself is enough. No conglomerate backing, no celebrity placement budget, no waitlist theater. Just leather, hardware, and construction, held to a standard that the logo-dependent houses stopped prioritizing the moment they realized you'd pay for the name instead. There's a pattern running through every brand on this list, and by the time you reach number 5, it becomes impossible to ignore. None of them are owned by a conglomerate. None of them spend their margin on celebrity ambassadors or flagship boulevard storefronts. All of them source full-grain leather and use artisan production methods that the major houses quietly abandoned as they scaled into global empires. The last 2 brands on this list take that pattern further than any of the others. One because of where it's made, and one because of what it's quietly becoming on the resale market. Number 4. Hunting Season. Hunting Season was founded in New York in 2012 by Sylvana Ward Durrett and Marigay McKee, and its production model is unlike anything else at its price point. The bags are hand-woven and hand-stitched by artisan workshops in Colombia, not in a factory, not on an assembly line, but by craftspeople working in a tradition of textile and leatherwork that predates most European luxury houses. The result is something the major houses genuinely cannot replicate at scale: true one-of-a-kind construction variation, where no 2 bags are precisely identical because no 2 human hands work in precisely the same way. The brand's signature woven leather totes and clutches retail between $450 and $950. The leather used is vegetable tanned, which means it was treated using natural plant-based tannins over a period of weeks, rather than chromium tanned in hours, the industrial shortcut that produces softer leather faster but significantly reduces longevity. Vegetable tanned leather is stiffer initially, breaks in slowly with use, and can last decades, with basic maintenance. It is the tanning method used by the oldest saddlery houses in Europe, and the same method Hermès specifies for its bridal leather goods. At $950, you are getting a production standard that a comparable Bottega Veneta Intrecciato piece, retailing at $3,200 to $4,800. Shares in philosophy, if not in name recognition. The woven construction also solves a problem that smooth leather bags cannot: surface wear. A scuff on a smooth, full-grain bag is visible. A scuff on a woven leather surface disappears into the texture. For buyers who actually use their bags daily, rather than rotating them on a shelf, that's a practical durability advantage that no amount of marketing copy can manufacture. The honest limitation is exclusivity of taste. Hunting season's aesthetic is tactile, artisanal, and slightly bohemian. It is not a bag for someone who wants a clean, minimalist silhouette or a structured city tote. The design language is specific, and it will not suit every wardrobe. But for the buyer, it does suit. There is nothing else at this price point that comes close to what it delivers in construction, origin story, and long-term wear. Number 5. Cafuné. Cafuné is a Brazilian brand founded in São Paulo, and it is the entry on this list most likely to look within 5 years, like the one everyone wishes they had discovered earlier. The brand launched in 2019 and has built its entire identity around a single construction principle: architectural leather goods made from vegetable-tanned hides, shaped into geometric silhouettes that sit somewhere between sculpture and utility. The slide bag, its most widely recognized design, retails between $320 and $580 depending on size and leather, and it has already begun appearing on the secondary market at or above retail price, which is the first reliable signal that a brand's demand is outpacing its supply. Depending on size and leather, and it has already begun appearing on the secondary market at or above retail price, which is the first reliable signal that a brand's demand is outpacing its supply. Resale value is the metric that most handbag buyers ignore and that most informed buyers track obsessively. A Chanel Classic flap bought in 2015 for $4,900 is worth approximately $8,000 to $10,000 on the secondary market today. That's the case most people make for luxury investment bags. But what the same analysis shows, when applied to emerging brands with genuine craft credentials and growing editorial recognition, is that the window of undervaluation is narrow. Cafuné is currently in that window. The slide is being held at its retail price point by a brand that hasn't yet raised prices to match its reputation. That gap closes. It always does. The leather Cafuné uses is sourced from Brazilian tanneries with traceability certifications, meaning the hide origin, tanning process, and chemical treatment are documented and auditable. That level of supply chain transparency is something most luxury conglomerates do not offer, not because the information doesn't exist, but because the answer is frequently inconvenient. For buyers who care where their leather comes from and under what conditions it was processed, Cafuné is one of the very few brands at any price point that can give you a straight answer. The hardware is solid brass, edge finishing is painted and sealed to the same standard as Strathberry and Wandler, and interior construction uses a full lining rather than the half-lining shortcut that saves manufacturers roughly $18 to $25 per unit in labor. Cafuné ships internationally but does not have a physical retail presence outside Brazil, which means returns and exchanges require international shipping at the buyer's expense. For first-time buyers, that's a real friction point worth acknowledging. What all 5 have in common? Step back and the picture is clean. Métier, Strathberry, Wandler, hunting season, Cafuné. Full grain or vegetable tanned leather across the board, artisan production in England, Spain, the Netherlands, Colombia, and Brazil. Zero conglomerate ownership. Not one of these brands sits inside the LVMH, Kering, Tapestry, or Capri Holdings portfolio. And price points that run from $320 to £1,150 against competitors charging 2 to 5 times as much for corrected grain leather, zinc alloy hardware, and a name that costs more to license than the bag costs to build. The luxury industry's most profitable secret is that the gap between what a bag costs to make and what it costs to buy is not filled with craftsmanship. It's filled with marketing. The brands on this list haven't closed that gap by being cheap. They've closed it by being honest about their materials, their production, and their prices. That honesty is exactly why most buyers walk past them without a second glance. The buyers who don't walk past them are the ones who understand that a logo is not a guarantee. Stitches are, leather grade is, edge finishing is, hardware weight is. And once you know how to read those things, the 5 brands you just heard about stop looking like obscure alternatives and start looking like the only logical choice. So here's what I want to know. If you could only pick one, Métier, Strathberry, Wandler, Hunting Season, or Cafuné, and price was completely off the table, which one are you walking out of the store with? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.